I'm here. It's almost time.
I'm the Mule.
You just know an episode is good when finding out Bayta Mallow is actually the Mule doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of how crazy things got. This finale wasn't just about one twist, because the stakes were way higher than that, and there's so much to unpack here. But let's start with Bayta, because honestly, I like that the show made her the Mule instead of Magnifico. It was starting to feel too obvious that he'd be the reveal, like everyone had already guessed it. And I think this just raised the stakes. It made the whole thing way more unsettling. For me, I kind of had a feeling Bayta was the Mule before the reveal. And of course, there's the whole ordering the, I guess, fake Mule around in the previous episodes when he was hurting Dawn too much. But I think the moment that really gave it away this episode was when she woke up in the infirmary and tried to get out. She said that line to Dawn, that we'd be fools not to at least try. And then she put her hand on that panel and the door just opened. That was the moment I thought, okay, something's off. Because up until then, she'd been so good at pretending, but here it felt like her mask slipped a little. And honestly, when she ran into Pritchard later and he doubled over from the Mule's presence, that sealed it for me. She looked surprised, like she didn't know what was going on. But by that point, I was convinced she was faking it. But it was actually really good pretending I'm not going to lie. But because of what I'd already noticed earlier, I was like, yeah, this is her. But then I also liked the reveal because Gail thought she'd finally killed the Mule. The fight she's been preparing for over a century ends with a single and brutal strike. His throat slit inside the walls of her mind, and for a second she actually thinks it's over. You can feel that weight lift off her shoulders. This was supposed to be the moment she earned peace. And honestly, if that had actually been the real Mule, and if that was supposed to be the big fight we've been building up to for 3 seasons, it would have been such a letdown. The whole thing felt way too easy and almost anticlimactic. Like, that can't be the showdown we've been waiting 150 years for. But then of course she feels it. That presence is still sitting in her head. And that's the one thing that shouldn't be there if the Mule was really gone. And that's when Bayta walks in. All calm, composed, and almost amused. And this is the real twist of the season. Bayta Mallow has been the Mule all along. Not the man Gail just killed, and certainly not Magnifico. It was Bayta, Torrhen's wife, the influencer who could make people love her, the woman they came there to save, was actually secretly pulling the strings the entire time. And it's not just a shocking reveal, it's a total rewrite of what we thought we knew. Everything from Magnifico's devotion, to Pritchard's sudden turn, to Bayta still being alive for that final reveal was setting up this twist. And it all snaps into place now. She wasn't a victim of the Mule's power. She was in fact the power. And I guess that explains why Bayta in particular was the most affected by the nerve field earlier, when Hari Seldon's left hand was closing the vault. It makes sense now, that her metallic powers would have made her extra sensitive to it. I also found it interesting that she puts Torrhen to sleep like she's tucking him in. And speaking of Torrhen, so does that mean Bayta is using her powers on him to love her? Hopefully it gets renewed for another season, and we get answers to these kind of questions. But then Bayta isn't a villain who's lost control. This is someone who thinks she's about to save humanity, by making everyone part of one single, unified mind. And just like that, Gail's entire victory crumbles. The Mule she spent 152 years preparing to fight was just a decoy. And that's why this reveal is so devastating. Because it doesn't just reopen the conflict. It makes us question if Gail's fight even meant anything at all. The fight she prepared for over 150 years. For Gail, this wasn't just a fight, it was the fight, the one that defined her entire life. She spent 152 years waiting for this moment and carrying the knowledge that someday the Mule would come for her. Also, when Gail says she used to count primes to calm herself, it isn't just a cute character detail. It was training. She was building a fortress in her mind, brick by brick, every time she lost someone. Whether it's her parents, Salvor, Hari, or even Ra, they became the walls of this place. And they're what kept her visions from swallowing her whole, and what kept her pushing forward. And when she says the fight with the Mule wouldn't happen on a battlefield, she means it. Because this was always going to happen here, in the fortress, where she calls the shots. And that fortress wasn't just a metaphor, it was her last line of defense. The walls were her memories, the floor was her grief, and every part of it existed to hold back the Mule when this day finally came. So when she faces him in Inber's office, she's ready. She doesn't just fight him physically, she pulls him into her mental fortress. And for the first time, the Mule is on her turf. Inside that space, she takes him apart piece by piece. She shows him the one thing he's been running from his whole life, that no matter how many people he forces to love him, no matter how many planets he conquers, he's still that terrified kid from Rossum, the kid whose parents tried to kill him because they wanted another child more. And when he hesitates, she doesn't. She takes him out, and the Mule, the galaxy's most dangerous mind, is dead. This should have been her catharsis. The fight she built her entire existence around is over, and for a brief moment you can feel that relief wash over her. But then, of course, it doesn't feel like victory. The Mule goes down too easily, and after 152 years of preparation, it's over in seconds. And that presence in her head still hasn't left, which is why Bayta's arrival was monumental, because the fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. Why Bayta is so dangerous. So then, of course, Bayta walks in, all calm and collected, like this entire battle was just a warm-up act for her entrance. This is where everything clicks into place inside Inber's office. Suddenly, all those little moments from the season, her ability to sway people, her strange luck, her influence over the Mule we thought we knew, they stopped being coincidences. She wasn't just there. She was pulling the strings the whole time, and this actually raises a big question for me. Did Pilou Asbek's character, the guy we thought was the Mule, actually have powers of his own, or was he completely under Bayta's control the whole time? Like, was he following her orders, or was he just delusional enough to believe he was the Mule? We still don't have a clear answer for that. Hopefully they renew this for a season 4 so we can finally get one. Anyways, I think that's what makes her so terrifying. She isn't raging or gloating like a classic villain. She's composed and almost gentle. She puts Torrin to sleep with a touch, like she's tucking him in for his own good. Then she orders Gail to convert, not because she wants to dominate her, but because she genuinely believes it will save humanity. That's the part that makes this scene so unsettling. Bayta doesn't think she's evil. She thinks she's the solution. In her mind, if she can just make everyone move in the same direction, all of humanity will be united, happy, and safe. She's not threatening chaos, she's threatening perfect order, and you can see how powerful she really is in this moment. Pritchard, Gail's closest ally, is under her control. Torrin, the man who loves her most, can't resist her. Even Magnifico, who we thought was the Mule, is ready to play for her and amplify her powers. This isn't just about Gail losing a fight. This is about Gail standing in the way of someone who wants to rewrite the entire galaxy in her image. And the person caught in the middle of all this wasn't Gail. It was Magnifico. The song that saved Gail. Just when it looks like Bayta has total control, Gail pulls off the one thing Bayta didn't see coming. Magnifico was told to play, and we find out this is actually Gail's song, the one she secretly programmed him to play, which honestly turned out to be such a smart move on Gail's part. Remember, when she first found the group in their shelter, and she realized Magnifico had already been converted by the Mule, so I was even wondering why she'd keep him around. But clearly, she had a plan. Tampering with his song was the trick up her sleeve, and that ended up being her saving grace. If it wasn't for that, this would have been a completely different conversation, because Bayta would have won right there, and this is such a sharp move on Gail's part. All season long, we've heard how important Magnifico's music was, how it could sway emotions, break people open, and now she turns that power back on Bayta. The melody that was supposed to convert Gail into another puppet becomes a weapon, ripping through Bayta's calm and forcing her to relive the worst moments of her own childhood. It's brutal, and for a second it feels like this could be the end of Bayta's plan, but it isn't. Gail doesn't win here, she just buys herself enough time to run. That's all this victory gives her, a window, so she takes it, and she smashes through the station window, launching herself into space, and meets Rossick mid-descent to get pulled aboard. It's a clever, desperate move, but it's not triumph. Bayta is still alive, Torrin is still under her influence, Pritchard is still lost, and the Mule, well, the real Mule, still has New Terminus under control, which is why this escape doesn't feel like relief. It feels like a setup for the next blow, and that escape came with a devastating betrayal. Why she left Vault Hari behind. As soon as Gail is back on the ship, Hari is there waiting for her. Not the real Hari, but the left hand, the one who got her this far. And this is where the victory turns bitter. Hari came through for her. He distracted the guards, helped her team get to the Mule, and gave her the chance to fight. And now he wants the one thing she promised him, to be free of the vault. But Gail can't give him that. She finally admits what she's been hiding all along. The real Hari is dead, and there is no body left to transfer this version into. This digital Hari is just stuck. The way he reacts here is so raw. He doesn't argue or lash out. He just goes silent, like the weight of what she's saying has crushed him. Because for him, the vault isn't just a tool. It's a prison, an eternal one. And this is where Gail's moral victory starts to crack. Yes, she beat the Mule, for now. But in the process, she lied to the one ally who understood psychohistory better than anyone. She made a choice that might have just turned Hari Seldon's greatest creation into someone who resents her. But to be fair to Gail, she never actually promised Hari she'd set him free. It's more like she just let him believe that's where this was heading. Kind of like when you tell someone, I'll see what I can do, and they take it as a yes, which is why she tells him, you heard what you wanted to hear. But that almost makes it worse because he's been holding on to that hope this whole time. And that's a terrifying thought, because if anyone could turn psychohistory into a weapon against her, it's Hari. So what does this mean for the future? The war that's coming next. Gail might have escaped, but this doesn't feel like a happy ending. Bayta is still alive, and more dangerous than ever. She has Torrhen under her control. Dawn is stranded and completely vulnerable, and everyone still left on New Terminus is in Bayta's orbit. The Mule's takeover is only beginning, and Gail is alone now, with no Harry, no team, and no plan. Just the knowledge that the fight she spent a century and a half preparing for wasn't the real one. The Second Foundation is still hiding, waiting for the right time to act. Vault Hari may turn from ally to enemy, and Bayta Mallow is about to turn the galaxy into one shared mind, whether anyone likes it or not. I think more than anything, Season 3 didn't just end the Mule's threat, it redefined it. So when Season 4 comes, the real war begins. And this time, Gail won't just be fighting to save the future, she'll be fighting to stop it.